attachment, you know, yeah, a little bit different, but that's okay. I don't change the spoon around or anything like that. You see how long that took? what, 10 seconds, 15 seconds?
10 seconds.
It's not a big, complicated procedure, honestly. Okay, so I guess at least I should take my socks off.
Do you want to hire Hassan over your history?
No, I'll survive. Now, I have issues with my hips, so if I was to do this regularly, I would sit on a seat. So, you know, if anyone, when you get to doing the puja, you need to sit at a table or chair, perfectly okay. Right? Now, as Prabhu was saying, we don't move things with our feet. Prabhupada, there was one time a devotee moved a typewriter with his foot, and he told him to pay his obeisance as a typewriter because the typewriter is engaged in Krishna service. Okay, so just sit down. And like, just from years of experience of doing this, I always like to tuck my cloth up so it's not falling into patras and things like that. Yeah? But then that means I have to purify my hand. There's no belt. John?
Jan, it's coming. Jan, just now.
And this is something I'm happy to go through with you several times over, if need be. Is about the setup. I think the setup of your paranoia is super important. Where you put things. Just from 30 years of doing this, I'll always put the bathing paranoia there, and then all the other patras here in the order I'm going to use them, starting close and going out, spoons out, all that sort of stuff. These things here are not designed for these things here. I don't know why. They can't figure out how to make an asana for a conch. So what I'll normally do is I'll put the conch sideways like that. But probably what I'll do is put that on that side and this on that side, so then I can just go like that and pour straight into it. Yeah? And also the bathing water feels a bit warm, so I'm just going to check it on my hand just to see how warm it is. That's nice. All right. Thank you. All right. This sergeant is tucked in the middle. There's our tea like lemon juice in there, not too runny.
What is the proportion?
You can mix it up a little bit. If it's a little bit runny, mix it up with it. You can use the spoon, but then you wind up with tea like all over the spoon.
Fingernails touching that paste, is it okay?
What to do?
Fingernails touching?
With things like that, you can't, unless you're going to have another bit of paranoia, you want to get dirty and stuff, Main thing is, like, there's an injunction in Shastra, the fingernails shouldn't touch the bathing water. That's in Shastra. That's not. Yeah, that's important. Now, what I do, looks like there's probably a little bit too much cotton wool there. Generally, what I'll do with the cotton wool is I'll just like mentally go through how I'm bathing the deities, the order I bathe the deities, and I'll organize the cotton wool in here in that manner. So, okay, so we have a piece here, probably that's big enough to remove the cotton wool, to remove the tilak from the deities. This piece here we can use for applying the tilak to the deities. So please be mindful, this stuff is not free. It doesn't fall out of the clouds. It's not what clouds are made of, by the way. So use what you need. We have no problem with that. Don't be wasteful. All right. So then that's for applying the tilak to the deities. Then I think that's enough here. Then we have. Do we wipe the deities down with cotton wool first? We don't. No. So then. Yeah, because I'm thinking guru and stuff like that. So then that's for taking the tilak off Nityananda for Gauranga, and that's for applying the tilak to Gauranga. Now, do I do guru puja or don't worry about that? Just
do the basics.
Okay, so you see that's like, I don't need that. Yeah? So put that over here somewhere. See how neat Rasavanji's organised the paraphernalia? This is really nice. Yeah? believe me, it helps. If you do that, it really helps because you can see exactly everything you have to put back on the deities. Like even with the Brahman threads, I take the Brahman threads off, I'll put it in front of my spiritual master. Just because whenever I get stuck with the worship, I pray to my Guru to give me some direction on what to do. So yeah, it's good to be nice and neat and clean like that. Here's our oil, put it over there. Okay, so that can then go there. And we have these things here. You might find when you're polishing the deities, I find it's helpful to use this for above the head and around the eyes, because otherwise what winds up happening is you rub the paint off. And I paint the deities in the temple where I live, and yeah, it takes a long time. To do a really good job takes a long time. I'm not saying I do a good job, but it takes time. Now, just a word of caution, don't put these in here, because when you're pulling this out, you're more than likely to put them on the floor. Put them in here somewhere so that they're not going to wind up on the floor. You put them on top of the towels there.
Sorry,
Right. Can we take this out so that, and like anything that you're using, like any resources like that you're using, they're considered finished with. You can't like reuse things. You can't, okay, you get too much of this, you can't reuse it. It's considered prasad, or not quite prasad, but not that you can use it. Someone had a question there?
Sorry, we couldn't see. You said don't put the cotton bud thing in
Yeah,
one.
don't put the cotton buds here,
Oh.
because like, when you're pulling other things out, you'll drop them on the floor. If you drop them on the floor, you can't offer them to Krishna.
Sure.
Okay, so that's, I think that's it. Oh, we need another tray, I think. Can we get another tray? This tray's good. Rasa, I've got one.
Mata, something is found here.
And always keep the floor dry. Otherwise you wind up with a big mess, soaking wet clothes, stuff like that. Yeah. All right, so you usually when you're doing your worship, have a tray with a paraphernalia on it that you're going to use, and a tray to take paraphernalia off. Because you offer everything with your right hand, all the bowl on this side, put the prasad on that side. Just easier. Now, I find it quite easy to lean like that. I recommend the ladies use these smaller deities, the men can use the bigger deities. The bigger deities weigh a lot. There's 2 or 3 sets of bigger deities that are hollow, which weigh less. The large deities that remove from the base, men should take that, give ladies preference to those deities. Yeah? And I'll bring this up forward too. And also, take all the blue tack off, yeah? Now you notice Lord Chaitanya has a peacock feather? Prabhupada told Malati, Lord Chaitanya must always wear a peacock feather. And when you take the bracelets off, also open them up. Don't just drag them across his skin. Yeah, I'm sure he would like the same done to you.
It is not necessary, right, that jewelries of Lord Nityananda and Mahaprabhu cannot wear Mahaprabhu's jewelry. We can't mix it. Is it okay if we mix it up?
There's no rule like that that I've ever heard. But then, some devotees feel that it's not appropriate, but that's okay. I mean, that's all right for the way they worship, and they can express themselves like that.
Of what? Of what?
About, like Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda having like individual jewelry. Now, you noticed how this was caught under his ear, so I held him so I could pull that out, so you don't just pull it out and run the risk of knocking the deity over or anything like that. And just, same thing is when you take the jewelry off, see how I'm not dragging it over his face? I'm being very careful to try my best, in my limited capacity, to treat the Lord as a person. Now, because it's cold, I'm not going to undress Nityananda any further than this. Yeah? I'll leave him like that. Am I doing Kalokyantra Jai or no worry about it?
Now let's,
I don't
tomorrow
know.
we're going to see full proper
Yeah, okay.
The main thing we're showing here is some
I
technique.
don't have any Chandan in there. But just to give you an idea, I'll do it with water just to show you how good it is. It doesn't take long. You just take a bit of water, draw that, then draw a few lotus petals. I mean, I've seen Janani do it in about 5 seconds, so.
Yeah, possible question.
Yeah, so just draw the yantra there. Now usually you do this with Chandan, downward facing triangle, upward facing triangle, then we draw clean. Yeah. It doesn't take long once you know what you're doing. Yeah, your question, Shamgal Hopper.
We must do make a check by sitting or we can stay, put everything on altar.
Sorry, I'm not understanding you.
No, I see one time when the Pujari, he not like to sitting on the floor and he put everything on the altar and do everything on the altar.
Yeah, we used to do that here, put the deities on the table, but the table's too small for this tray and the deities, so it became quite complicated. So last year I just showed the devotees do that. And there's one really good feature also is when you finish making deities, you put underneath there with all the chant read, and you don't have this like all over the floor. Which is what.
On altar.
Huh?
On altar, not put down.
No, it's okay because this is metal. You've cleaned the area. You haven't walked on the area, so the area is clean. The floor's clean. This is metal. You know, it's not a problem. It's not a problem there or on the altar. Whatever's practical, you know. Yeah, whatever's practical. That's one of the things that I really found particularly inspiring about Srila Prabhupada. He's a very practical person.
Also, when we show the field procedure tomorrow, there's Dravya Sudhi will be purifying, Prokshana will be purifying all the articles as well. So that Snan Deity will be purified.
Now, normally you wouldn't have Kantimala that long. That's kind of a little bit long. Right, and I always put them there in front of my Guru Srila Prabhupada just to make sure I can put them back on at the end. Right, and then take the dhoti off. And you may also notice that I close the Velcros. Anyone who's ever done regular deity worship realizes the best way of destroying the clothes is this thing here. Yeah, so always close the Velcros off. Yeah. Now, when you invite him, you can offer shoes. Just touch the shoes to the bathing tray, then put them back out. You know, and then bring the deity in. There's a nice warming oil, saffron. And Sanatana Goswami specifically mentions the oil should go on the hair. So we always start with the head, work our way down very quickly. Yeah, because you don't have a lot of time, so quickly. Make sure you always put the lid back on the oil.
These oils, they destroy the color, the paint.
You do it quickly. It's fine.
We didn't apply on head.
Huh? I didn't put the. All see the water. Okay, so what we do is just and also like I would normally put chandan in the water and different things, flowers and stuff like that. Just a little bit of water on the deity. And the idea here is it just makes it easier to polish. Right? So then the first thing I'll do is I'll take some cotton wool for polishing, and again wet the cotton wool, because if the tilak is too dry, it won't come off very easily. So the idea is to make sure it's wet, and then get plenty of tilak. Now this is a really important point that all our facilitators will check, is that you're checking for stones. Because you don't want to be rubbing a stone over Krishna's body, or Lord Chaitanya's body in this case. Yeah? So just rub your thumb over, make sure there's no stones. Oh, Sorry, the bell's not clean. And it's also nice when you've got the bell here, because we have Gaura sitting on the top. You can put him so he's looking at the Lord, so he gets Krishna's darshan, or Lord Chaitanya's darshan. Right, so just for me personally, I'll usually turn the deity a little bit, just so I can polish him properly. And actually what I'll do, because you usually start with the face. Now, Janani won't do this, or he may, but I've never seen him do this. But just what I've found is you can polish just as effectively with these things around the eyes and stuff, but it preserves the paint a little bit longer. You know, because rubbing this on the deity is just, it's like rubbing a mild sandpaper on the deity. So there are some restrictions in scripture about touching the deity with the left hand while bathing. I feel this is a case of the safety of the deity or the security of the deity. So I will hold him with my left hand directly, but it's not really, strictly speaking, not bathing. It's kind of maybe considered part, but not strictly speaking. So you can either hold him around his waist so secure, or hold him by the arm, whatever's best. Because you need to kind of push quite firmly on the deity to polish effectively. And you'll notice it's coming up blackish. That's good. You get that? That's good, because it means the oxide is coming off the metal. And the idea that Srila Prabhupada told devotees in a letter one time, or actually several times he said the same thing, is I can tell by the deity's bright faces you're looking up them very nicely. Prabhupada like to see shiny deities. And also, when you're polishing deities, or when you're bathing or serving deities that have a base like this, be mindful that can happen. Yeah? The deity can come out of the base very easily. So just keep an eye on that when you're doing the polishing stuff, that Lord Chaitanya doesn't slide out of his base. Okay.
It's not easier to do it without the base.
Sorry?
Is it not easier to do it without the base and then base it?
I think you're running the risk of knocking the deities over. Yeah. So that's come up quite well. You know, there's a good bit of tarnish on that, and just chuck that in there. And usually I encourage you to have one cloth for your hand and one cloth for the table. The cloth for your hand you can keep over your shoulder or keep on a plate on the floor or something like that. But it's good to have a cloth for your hand. All right, so we can start with the polishing. Now, I'm squeezing quite tight because we want it to be very shiny, because that's pleasing to Srila Prabhupada when the deities are shiny. And if necessary, you need to turn the deities, that's perfectly okay, but these are not handles. Yeah? Turning by the base, steady by the hand. Yeah? Now, same thing here, check for stones. Yeah? Some devotees you'll see they're very expert, they don't need to turn the deities. I'm not so expert. I like to, really see what I'm doing. Yeah.
There's deities from wood. You don't need to polish them over there like this, right?
You should polish them daily.
Wooden deities.
Oh, wooden deities, yeah, you don't polish wood.
Only water, right?
Not even water. Not even water. Just wipe them down with a dry cloth. Yeah, because the water will damage the wood eventually. It'll get waterlogged, and then your deities will rot. Hare Krishna, see how it's coming up a little bit tarnished there? That's good.
It's a drop of lime.
Lemon juice. Lemon. Yeah, lemon. That's in the water already, in the tilak already.
So you're gonna give us all those ingredients later, right?
Yeah, everything you need will be there. Don't go by itself.
Is it coffee chandan and lemon juice?
Yeah, tilak and lemon juice. Yeah. But then in different places, like when Prabhupada first started introducing the worship into the West, he suggested they use fuller's earth, which is a very fine type of potter's clay, and lemon juice. In South India, you'll see sometimes they use tamarind. The thing is with tamarind is that you really got to remove it quickly, otherwise you get all these, which I discovered when we installed the Panchatattva, you get all these like swirly patterns on the deity from the tamarind. Now I've removed the bulk of the tilak with pouring water on. You see how most of it's gone? You notice that? Right, then what I do is I get this piece here and make it really wet. Right, and then we start by dabbing in the eyes. You'll see Jananivas when he does it, the water just splashes out of the deity's eyes. I've never been able to do that. But I always concentrate on around the hands and just all the parts where the carving is in the corners of the mouth. There's a common thing is when you go on the altar, you see there's tilak in the corner of the mouth of the deity. Not good. All right, and then up the back of the arms, oftentimes you'll see devotees miss that. Back. If you need be, you can wet this a little bit more. Okay. Now, generally by this time I've got the baking pot on the left side. It saves time. It'll save you a lot of time if you leave that on the left side, because otherwise you're going to put the conch down on the stand, etc. Also, when you hold the conch, I always hold it like that. I've seen people drop conches on deities. So you hold like that, or you can hold like that, whatever suits your hand. Yeah. Either way. Yeah. Now, also, I recommend 2 cloths for each deity, and I'll show you why. After he's been bathed, try to avoid touching him directly with your hands, because the oil from your skin may tarnish him further. So dry his face. You know it's like when you get out of the shower, usually the first thing you want to dry is your face. Wrap this one around him, so you see I'm not touching him directly, and then slide him out of the base and just dry it underneath. At this point, very carefully, because he's not in the base, put him on the table. You see how he's unstable? So if you're very careful, there's not going to be a problem. We have, was it last year or the year before? I think someone knocked one of the deities over. Poor fellow almost had a heart attack. If you do things like that, then apologise. Just like, if you knock someone over, you apologise, you help them stand up, all that sort of stuff. You have some general sense of repentance. All right, and just a little bit of water here to clean the base out. Now, for drying the bases, please don't use these cloths. I'm using it now because of what I've got here. Use probably the little square hand towels, because the metal in here is very coarse and it will ruin these cloths. So now the base is clean and dry. And Prabhupada also encouraged to buff the deities with a soft cloth. So the idea is you just rub briskly with this cloth and it'll make him shine even more. Right? Okay, so then purify my hands because I'm going to the next upachara. Purify your hands at least in between each upachara. Not necessarily every time you do something, but at least between each upachara. Put on the cloth, make sure it goes the right way through his legs. Right. And at this point you put on tilak, which we don't have here. Probably put the Brahmin thread and the Kanti Baba first, but put all these things now. And see, again, I spread like that, so I'm not dragging it over his face. You can put it round his neck a second time if you like. This one's kind of long, so I probably will. I don't normally put them round the neck twice, but if you're going to, I like to sort of pull it down a little bit at the front so it's not sort of choking around his neck. And then this could be kind of half the length, this one, it's really long. Okay. And then, these like tube kind of ones, they're not very good for small deities. So then, you do his tilak, etc. like that. And then at this point, I would bring Nityananda into the bathing tray and polish Nityananda, and then his tilak dries. Because what happens otherwise is you wind up with tilak all over the inside of the deity's clothes, which is not very comfortable for them. Yeah, so, but I'll put this on now because we're done. Okay, so you can see the difference between Lord Chaitanya, the shine on his body, and the shine on Nityananda's body. So if you can get like this or a little bit better, I mean, if I had spent more time, it could have been better. But okay. Any questions, comments?
Can you use Gangamad for instead of the tilak and like?
You can. It's not. I think the tilak does a better job. And the thing is with the Ganga mud, where you get the Ganga mud from also is quite important, because people are passing stool up and down the Ganga, and so you've got to be careful of dogs and things like that. They bury dead bodies, all sorts of stuff. So you can use it, but you just have to be careful of the, to make sure there's no, of course Ganga mud is pure, but you just want to make sure there's no impurities in the Ganga mud. Yeah.
Water, can we use the water from the fountain?
Here they do, yeah. But again, get it from away from the bank, because the banks where all the people are doing their stuff, there's a lot of the water's pure, but there's impurities in the water. Yeah.
If it doesn't get Ganga water, you can use the Tulsi.
Sorry?
If it doesn't get Ganga water, you can put Tulsi.
No, it's like, I mean, in all honesty, it's like this whole thing of, I mean, I'm just teaching it because it's in the book. But there's a, it may be in the third canto, where Prabhupada's talking about, there's this one word there, the Shalile, and Srila Prabhupada says this word means that any water. He says some people said you have to use Ganges water when serving the deity. He said, but this word is saying you can use any water. So it's not, like some people have this kind of notion. It's like, oh no, you can only use Ganges water or Jamuna water with deity. You can use any water. And if you want to invoke the holy rivers in, fine. That's the standard we're teaching here. But if in your temple they don't do it, it's not they're wrong. It's just they don't do it. So yeah, I wouldn't get too worried about stuff like that.
And shoes too, shoes after.
Huh?
Shoes.
Shoes?
We wash shoes after shoes.
Do I wash them? No, No, I mean, usually what temples do is like during the worship, then someone who's doing the paraphernalia will do the shoes and stuff like that. Shut up. Yeah.
So
Okay.
you first putting tilak for Gauranga while he is
Yeah, I'll
drying?
put the tilak and then I'll do Nityananda.
You're bathing and everything,
Yeah, bathing, polishing, put his lower cloth on, put his kanti mala up a bit, his tilak. Then I go back to Lord Chaitanya and put his upper cloth jewellery.
Tulsi when?
Tulsi when they're both done. Because like the whole bathing, dressing, ornamentation, I'll split. But the beginning section and the end section, like the worship at the end, I'll do it together. Because it's quicker. It's quicker like that. You know, you say, etat tulsi patam lingula, etat tulsi patam lingula, etani pushpani, kind of, all that sort of stuff. It's quicker that way. Huh?
Ornaments after the
No, but as Manaji just said, like what I'll do is like I will bathe Lord Chaitanya, I'll polish and bathe Lord Chaitanya, dry him, put his lower cloth on, then put tilak, kanti mala, Brahman thread tilak. Yeah. Then I'll polish Lord Nityananda. Then I'll put everything on him tilak like that. As soon as I put his tilak, then I finish Lord Chaitanya because his tilak's dry. Yeah? And then when I've ornamented, dressed and ornamented Lord Chaitanya, then Nityananda's tilak's dry, so then I'll do Nityananda. Yeah? Okay, so we'll see you at 4. And please, what are we going to do tomorrow afternoon? Practice. Everything will be up there in room 3 for you. All the tilak and everything you need. The deities will be set up there. Everything will be there for you tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much for the.